Ladies and gentlemen, Eloisa Klementich.
By a show of hands, how many of you have ever been to a Mexican-Serbian family reunion? Yes, don't be shy, yeah. That's what I thought. I think I'm the only one. You see, my father was a World War II immigrant, and my mother a Mexican immigrant. And yes, with all the languages spoken, reunions were always creative. Growing up, we were the typical, you're right, quasi-typical middle-class family. From hamburgers to baseball to the YMCA, my parents embraced the American dream. And like many other middle-class families, they believed that when you worked really hard in this country, you too could prosper. But what has happened since my childhood? In 1970, 63% of all American household families were considered middle class. By 2015, that number had decreased to less than 42%. Could the stagnation of the middle class be driving some of these inequities we face today in income, employment, and housing? I believe that sustainable economies grow when a region can find that positive intersection between economic and social demands, focused on an economic growth strategy undergirded by upward economic mobility. And in fact, it is this mobility strategy that allows for a region's further growth and vitality. The theory has several factors from education, health, and technology, but for today's conversation, we're going to focus on three: training, mobility, and affordable housing. The first factor that demonstrates the positive impacts of an economic mobility strategy is training. I believe that as a region, we need to create, enhance, and support training programs that allow an individual to upskill themselves so they have the potential to earn a higher wage, and we finally chip away at that income disparity gap. The economics work as follows. A reduction in neighborhood poverty by 10% results in an increase in a family's household income by $7,000. There are over 140,000 families living in poverty in our region today. If we decrease that number by just 10%, we would not only be helping our families, but we would stimulate our economy by $850 million. Not only is training important to us socially, but it also has business implications because now businesses would have a wider labor pool to choose from, helping to enhance their opportunity success and our success as a region. The second factor to consider is mobility. Now, for mobility to be effective, we have to undertake this as a region. Why? Because economies do not have borders. And in fact, 70% of our region commutes to a different county every day to go to work. And similarly, businesses have clients and supply chains that cross over city boundaries. Hence, pointing to the need of a regional transportation system that gets people and products from where they are to where they need to be in an effective and efficient manner. The economics are clear. If we reduce a worker's commute time by 1 hour a week, we could effectively increase that worker's wage by $1,000 a year. Let's say as a region, we're able to do this with 20% of our region's workforce, we would have stimulated our economy by $460 million. What's in it for businesses? They too benefit because now they have a workforce that's readily available first, second, or third shift, meaning they will experience productivity gains and we as a region will be more competitive. The third factor that demonstrates the positive impacts of an economic mobility strategy are affordable workforce housing. For the biggest impact we can achieve on affordable workforce housing, it needs to be in our region's job centers. Now let's explore this for a moment. We know our region's families spend 62% of their income on housing and transportation. If we aggregate that amount of spend for all the families currently in our job centers today, that spend represents $11 billion. Now, stick with me here for a second. If we provide our families more affordable options in our region job centers and decrease their spend by just 5%, we would not only be helping our families, but we would be stimulating our economy by $550 million. Now, I know affordable housing is not easy, and there is no one solution, but I think we all can agree it is necessary. Just look at the numbers. The average listing price for a home today in our region's job centers, $310,000. The average rent, $1,900. This means that less than a quarter of our region's households can even afford to live in a job center today. We could debate my numbers, we could, but I think if we did, we would be missing the point. An economic growth strategy undergirded by economic mobility is important to us socially, no questions asked. But the point I want to make with you today, and what I hope you leave with, is that a strategy based on economic mobility has a net positive impact to our economy that is real. When our economy focuses on factors like training and mobility and affordable housing, we as a region are able to attract and retain our workforce, to sustain the success of our businesses, to help ensure our quality of place, all while improving the lives of every single individual who calls this region home. So I would ask you this: are you ready to embrace the best version of yourselves, ourselves? Are we ready to show leadership in this strategy? Because I have no doubt that the reconciliation between economic and social demands will happen with an economic growth strategy targeted on economic mobility. How are we ready to show leadership? Are we ready to make our region a place of continued prosperity, of continued opportunity, a place where everyone and where all ships rise together? Thank you.